This is the case study of Cappadocia and Göreme National Park by me, Noah Gonzalez. Cappadocia has a long history of inhabitants. The Hatti culture resided there from 2500 to 2000 BCE, and then the Hittites later settled the area in the second millennium BCE, and then the Assyrians established trading posts in 2000 and 1800 BCE. Later on, the area was ruled by the Persians in 334 BCE, and in 17 CE, it became a province of Rome, and Christian communities began to appear, and the area became a melting pot of various cultures. Now, fast forward a very long time, and the IUCN came in, and in 1985, the area of Göreme, Cappadocia became a cultural and natural World Heritage Site. Before 1985, most of Turkey's tourism was in the southern region, and Cappadocia then became a highly sought-after tourism site after the Tourism Encouragement Act, which ensured incentives for private tourism investment and allowed large tourism businesses to grow rapidly, largely in the absence of proper planning and development principles. Because it was in a national park, the construction of large hotels was largely in nearby towns, and stakeholders in the area were mostly local people, tourism, and local tourism. Drastic change from subsistence farming to a heavy tourism economy led the younger generation to be driven to more modern infrastructure and the replacement of unique building styles of certain areas with European styles. The tradition in creating cave houses had been stopped by regional laws, and Göreme was selected to be a protected area because of its unique landscape and the living areas. Göreme is a IUCN Category 2 National Park and could also fall into the Category 3 Natural Monument or Feature. The construction of illegal buildings has damaged natural and historical lands, and the development of tourist services has resulted in increased disturbance to the scenery. The three biggest threats to the region are uncontrolled tourism, construction of hotels and tourist infrastructure, and natural deterioration and erosion. Uncontrolled tourism just can't be controlled all over the park because of an inadequate number of staff, and construction of hotels. There's lots of illegal housing inside the national park, and especially in residential areas. At tourism destinations, the visual integrity of the site is impacted because of this new infrastructure, and then the natural deterioration is happening with weathering and erosion, and as well as human disturbances such as construction of irrigation dams and ponds, which rises the humidity and then increases the natural deterioration of these areas. Of these three, uncontrolled tourism has had the largest and most substantial impact, and because of that, I will focus on that. So the Tourism Encouragement Act, as I said before, impacted the way tourism developed, which incentivized the private tourism investment and allowed foreign companies to get the real estate, which then led to very rapid growth and poor planning and development principles. So many of the traditional homes were destroyed or at least redesigned in ways that are very different from traditional practices. And this is a result of the erosion of rocks and the laws banning the cave carving and repairs without having approval. And so the community became increasingly disenfranchised from tourism and heritage management process in the area. And so the building regulations were to obtain permission for any alteration work to the cave dwellings just directly impacted the residents of the cave homes and the entrepreneurs who were trying to make a living off of the cave dwellings. So underlying threats of this tourism are the human pollution outside of the park, poor tourism planning, and construction legislation, just leading to lots of issues. And then some indirect threats are lack of studies of the park, poor connection between stakeholders and social media. And then the managing tools that seem to go unused are lack of planning legislation, lack of substantial use limits, and management zones are actually used in Göreme, which is kind of helpful. So Turkey's approach to this management continues to emphasize tourism and often destroys cultural habitats and leads to other environmental problems. The continuation of sustainable infrastructure are necessary before ecotourism can hope to resolve the conflicts between development and conservation. And in May 24th, 2019, the Turkish parliament passed a bill titled to the Cappadocia Area Directorate, and it regularizes irregular buildings that try to push to the increase very modern construction that will be mega projects and that are very, very far from the style of the land. A lot of the issues and assessments of Turkey, lots of the studies mainly use government stats and reports, and they paint a very much better picture than reality is. Recent interests in ecotourism might foster protected areas that encompass core habitat for populations and species, which would be better for the land and for animals around. And so planning around joining parks and around interaction of the stakeholders would lead to a much better process.